Coming up on Maryland Newsline, I'm Carly Kempler. A Baltimore City police officer was laid to rest today. I'll have the details for you in just a few minutes.
I'm Haleigh DiBetta, and I'll show you just one piece of the puzzle in the opioid crisis.
Learn how Baltimore's four-legged friends are also becoming victims of crime. I'm Natalie Grim, and Maryland Newsline starts now.
But let's talk about the love Sean and Nicole shared instead.
A family, a state, in mourning. Baltimore Police homicide detective Sean Suiter has been laid to rest and his killer still on the loose. Good evening, I'm Natalie Grim, and this is Maryland Newsline.
And I'm Laura Perrott. Grief, reflection, and anger tonight as hundreds attend Detective Sean Suiter's funeral in Baltimore, paying tribute to a member of the force with a spotless record. CNS-TV's Carly Kempler was there. Carly?
Thanks, Laura. It was an emotional day here for family and officers saying goodbye to Detective Sean Suiter for the very last time.
A life lost in the line of duty.
It's a somber day. It's always tough to come to these. So, I wanted to pay respects.
Hartford County Senior Deputy Ralph Cambershini says he was in Detective Sean Suiter's graduating police class.
We may not keep in touch with people, but you remember who your classmates are, you remember who your fellow police officers are.
Suiter was a husband and a father of 5. His eldest daughter shared a poem as she said farewell.
I can't tell you how many tears I've cried since I got the news that you were gone. This all seems so impossible.
One of Suiter's sons also shared parting words.
That man right there was a great man. I love the love that you guys had and shared together. You guys were best friends, and I strive to have that in my life.
About a man they knew and loved. One of the detective's young relatives offered advice to the officer's children.
I know what you're going through. I lost some people too, but you have to remember Sean will never stop loving you.
Baltimore City Police Detective Jonathan Jones worked closely with Suiter.
He was a good person. That smile radiated before he opened the door. That laughter came through right as soon as he began to talk.
Following the ceremony, hundreds of police cars lined the roads for a funeral procession to Delaney Valley Memorial Gardens, where Suiter was laid to rest.
On a day like this, we come out to honor the sacrifice that they made, because when we look at what happens to some of the police officers, we realize it could be us at any day that we go to work.
And the city's police commissioner says he expects to give an update on the search for the suspect by the end of this week. Reporting live in Baltimore County, Carly Kempler, CNS-TV. Back to you, Laura.
Thanks so much, Carly. A sad day in Baltimore and still no answers. The investigation into Detective Suiter's murder is ongoing. It's been 2 weeks exactly since the 18-year veteran of the force was murdered. It was just one day before Suiter was supposed to testify about fellow officers in front of a federal grand jury. A $215,000 reward is being offered for information that leads to his killer's arrest.
Maryland, like much of the rest of the country, is in a battle against opioid drug addiction. Many of the drugs that find their ways to the streets come from overseas, and their point of entry is often through the Kennedy Airport in New York. CNS-TV's Haleigh DiBetta is back from a trip to New York and a visit to those on the front line of the efforts to keep those drugs from making their way across the U.S. Haleigh joins us now live from the Update Center. Haleigh?
Thanks, Natalie. It is a never-ending battle for those on the front line. Consider this. The fentanyl seized at JFK is 90% pure. It's unlike other fentanyl that comes in from the southwest border, which is typically already mixed with other opioids like heroin. Because of that, the job of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents truly can be a life or death matter for everyone involved.
Sending a package containing a bottle of lotion may seem harmless, but not when there's a deadly surprise inside.
We're not looking for, necessarily bigger packages, it's smaller packages, and then really looking for specific shippers and consignees that it seems to be a trend.
Drugs stuffed inside a bottle of lotion is the norm at the Customs and Border Protection facility here at John F. Kennedy International Airport.
When they see that we're honing in on a specific area or a specific type of package, they'll switch to another package.
Opioids like fentanyl are usually shipped to cities like Baltimore from other countries. Customs officials say those shippers frequently find creative new ways to move their product.
If we notice a drop-off, we'll know that, hey, something's up.
JFK is in charge of 60% of all international packages, and as many as 1 million are processed here on any given day.
It became pretty apparent to us that fentanyl was being manufactured in labs in China and Hong Kong.
Russo says 100% of the 86 fentanyl seizures made last year came from China and Hong Kong, a huge jump from the 7 seizures the year before. The job goes around the clock, a job that is not without its dangers.
They wear gloves and masks. They understand that any powder that they deal with needs to be handled with care.
Suspicious packages are pulled aside and opened to get a closer look. This machine, called a Gemini, allows agents to scan powders and other substances through baggies, keep them out of harm's way. Members of the K-9 team like Irby also play a crucial role.
They are a tremendous asset for all of us because what they can do in the place of 10 to 20 officers in less than half their time.
Sniffing out the unseen.
Any slight sense or smell of fentanyl, whether it's 1 gram, 10 grams, or 100 grams, they're going to pick up on that.
Screening packages here at JFK is just one step along the way in efforts to get a handle on the opioid addiction crisis in states like Maryland.
We are the first line of defense, the front line of defense, and it's our job to stop it here before it gets onto the streets.
As I mentioned, JFK screens 60% of all international packages shipped into the U.S. The other 40% is handled by 8 other facilities around the U.S. Live in the Update Center, Haleigh DiBetta, CNS-TV. Back to you, Laura.
Thanks so much, Haleigh. Millions of dollars spent, but still the lives lost to opioid overdoses here in Maryland are in the thousands. CNS-TV's Becca King joins us from the newsroom with part 2 of her in-depth look at Arundel County's Safe Station program. Becca?
Thanks, Laura. Back in July, nearly $300,000 went to local intervention teams in Anne Arundel County. But is it enough? And are programs like Safe Stations doing enough to save lives threatened by addiction?
I didn't think I could ever have a day clean.
Since it started in April, Anne Arundel County's Safe Station program has helped hundreds of people. People like Jenna Kiefer, who struggled with drug addiction for a decade.
And now I wake up every morning and that's the furthest thing from my mind.
While many have been helped, Crisis Response Team Director Jen Corbin says the battle continues for others.
When they're really struggling, it tends to be in the evening or late evening when they can't find enough money to buy, or they're high and they finally get the courage to reach out for help.
And while the Safe Stations and Crisis Team are 24/7,
just don't want them to return to the environment.
The treatment centers are not.
That's really hard when you can't get them in right then, or it's 11 o'clock at night and nobody's taking people.
Clay Stamp is the executive director of the state's Opioid Operation Command Center.
We are working to expand treatment. That's the good news. The bad news is time's not on our side, because every day we have people dying.
Kiefer tried to find help before going through Anne Arundel County's Safe Station program, but
there's so much money that there's no way I would ever be able to pay for it, or they didn't take my insurance. I know that's a lot of people that are still out using's problem.
Some people may not have private insurance or qualify under Medicaid. In those cases, the amount that the state pays matches what Medicaid pays. It spends between almost $200 and $350 per day, depending on the type of treatment the individuals need. The Maryland Health Department tells Capital News Service they won't provide money for recovery housing until fiscal year 2019. Angel Trainer runs 5 recovery homes in Annapolis, including one where Kiefer stayed. She says until those funds come,
it's the beds. We need more treatment beds.
People will be left without money for these services.
It's not treatment and done. That's not how it works. It's a whole continuum of care that needs to happen to help those people.
In fact, Corbin says relapse usually happens 5 or 6 times before there's a long-term recovery.
I think that's where our system has broken down and where a lot of the relapse occurs is people come out of inpatient and then they have no place to land.
And it's a everyday struggle. It's never going to just go away.
But programs like Safe Stations can still make a difference. And for Kiefer, it did.
Just one day at a time, wherever life takes me.
Clay Stamp tells me they're looking to expand the Anne Arundel County program to other parts of the state. And when I talked to Jen Corbin, she mentioned that counties on the Eastern Shore could be the next in line. Still, they say it's clear that we didn't get into this crisis overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight either. Live in the newsroom, Becca King, CNS-TV. Laura and Natalie, back to you.
Thanks so much for that series, Becca. Another sexual assault allegation hits close to home. Find out which university might be in trouble.
Plus, suffering on the streets of Baltimore. This is one heartbreaking story you won't want to miss. Next. Welcome back to Maryland Newsline. More allegations of investigative negligence at Howard University have surfaced. An anonymous woman says she was sexually assaulted by a repeat offender while at the school. She joins 5 others in a federal lawsuit against the college for its handling of the sexual assault investigations. The lawsuit claims the university was slow to act and failed to accommodate the complainant, assigning her to the same dorm as her alleged attacker. The same woman recently filed a complaint with the U.S. District Court for the assault that she says happened in April 2016. And relief for transgender students in Maryland schools. A lawsuit filed against a Frederick County school system policy has been dropped. Parents of a 15-year-old girl filed the suit in response to a policy that allowed students to use bathrooms matching their gender identities rather than their assigned sex. The high school girl felt the policy violated her privacy rights. Her lawyer said the family is choosing not to move forward with the case since she has experienced, quote, stress and bullying from her peers. And as we saw earlier on Maryland Newsline, it's no secret that Baltimore is battling a rising violent crime problem. But it's not just the humans who are paying the price. Natalie has spent the last several months investigating victims who often live in the shadows. Natalie?
Absolutely, Laura. What you may not know is our four-legged friends are very much on the firing line. In fact, they're often an indicator of the depth of the problem, and they are also often the first to suffer. Now, we want to warn you, some of the images in this report might be difficult to watch.
He's just one of the crew now.
Benny is one spirited cat.
And he actually has fit right in. He's gained 2 pounds. He's in charge of the dogs.
But he wasn't always living this large.
He had 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over it was on his head all the way back through his back.
Benny was a victim of chemical burns on the streets of Baltimore City. Linda Wilmot, a veterinarian, has been caring for Benny since July.
It's a very sad, horrible kind of story, and it makes you wonder about humanity.
Wilmot estimates the Animal Allies Rescue Foundation in Baltimore has spent $140,000 to cover the care of abused animals last year. And that doesn't include what the veterinarians like Linda do for their fosters free of charge.
I'm not charging anybody anything. You know, I'm giving him what I think he needs, what he deserves.
And Benny's not alone. The AARF found 7 cats in Baltimore this year. Benny here was one of them, but they say it's impossible to know how many abused animals are out there. Benny is among the many abused cats found in Baltimore suffering from chemical burns, removed limbs, and even bullet wounds. All fighting for their lives, but not all winning the battle. Last year, Maryland began including convicted animal abuse offenders on the criminal registry, a small step towards a big problem. And according to animal activist Caroline Griffin, an important step towards the solution.
When in doubt, speak out.
Not just to help the animals, says Griffin, but to help Baltimore fight crime where it begins.
Some of the worst cases are perpetrated by kids, some as young as 10 years old, and it's really boys in particular.
And those offenses can be predictors for future behavior.
They're trying to prove their manhood or show off to their friends. These are crimes that typically don't happen in isolation.
The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office tells Capital News Service that last fiscal year, 46 cases of animal abuse were reported. That's up from 42 the previous year. The state's attorney's office says that adult animal abusers have been linked to murder cases and domestic violence. And Griffin thinks
juvenile offenders need to be held accountable for their crimes. There has to be some measure of repercussion for inflicting that kind of suffering on a sentient creature.
With the violence rising and the number of cats and dogs injured or killed also increasing, Caroline Griffin says the fight is far from over.
I want the dialogue to change, that these animals are crime victims deserving of protection.
And activists like Griffin and veterinarian Linda Wilmot say they'll remain on the front lines of the battle to try to bring about that change.
This cat has no understanding of what happened to him or why. You know, how could you not? How could you not do something like this? This is what I was born to do.
The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office tells Capitol News Service that of the animal abuse cases they handled last year, they were able to get convictions in 80% of the cases.
Thanks for that, Natalie. Sad story there. And I know the Baltimore Police Department has its hands full with the current crime problem as it is, but can you tell me how they're handling these animal abuse cases?
Well, Laura, we did request an on-camera interview with the Baltimore Police, but they did decline. I can tell you, however, that they have an animal abuse unit. The state's attorney's office tells us there are 2 detectives assigned to that unit.
Great, thanks, Natalie. And coming up, we'll find out which local football players picked up some honors today.
And the Washington football team clinging to their playoff hopes. Sports is next. Welcome back to Maryland Newsline.
A critical point in the season for the Washington football team. CNS-TV's Alex Flum is here to break it down. Alex?
Thanks, Natalie and Laura. They may be down, but they're not out yet. A huge game for them tomorrow against their arch rival, the Dallas Cowboys. 5-6 on the season, a long but easy road ahead for DC. So far this year, they've had the second toughest schedule in the NFL, and they might have the easiest remaining schedule. Just 5 more games for the Burgundy and Gold, none coming against a team with a winning record. After their matchup in Dallas, they'll have 10 days off before they take on the Chargers in LA. Jay Gruden's team will then welcome the Arizona Cardinals and the Denver Broncos in a quick homestand before closing out their season against the Giants at MetLife Stadium on New Year's Eve. But it is somewhat familiar territory for this team. The last 4 times they've made the playoffs have all come after late season playoff pushes. Even if they win out this year, there's no guarantee that they'll make it, but this could be a reason for hope in the DMV. From the gridiron to the hardwood, the Wizards have been battling the rest of the NBA without the leader of their Wolfpack, John Wall. Wall has missed 4 games this season, and he's expected to miss about a week and a half more with a knee injury. The Wizards 21-54 during Wall's career without him. They did manage to win last night, though, beating the Timberwolves 92-89. Tonight, they're still on the road. They'll take on the 76ers in Philly for a 7 p.m. tip. The Maryland women's basketball team playing tonight, too. The Terps currently riding a 3-game win streak. They'll face Virginia in Charlottesville tonight. Brenda Friese's squad 5-2 on the year. Their 2 losses coming against UConn, the #1 team in the nation, and South Carolina, the defending national champion. Well, it was a season to forget for the Maryland football team, but a season to remember for junior wide receiver DJ Moore. Today, Moore was named the first team All-Big Ten team. On the heels of a record-breaking season, he set a new single-season program record with 80 catches on the year. To go along with those, more than 1,000 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Just one of 3 players in the nation to put up those 3 stats. He also has recorded a catch in 33 consecutive games. Earlier in the season, his offensive coordinator, Walt Bell, had nothing but praise.
Everything is on the table with him. We've handed it to him, thrown it to him, screen game down the field, whatever it takes, to ensure that he gets the ball. Because when he has the ball in hand, as we discussed before, he's hard to tackle.
A couple other Terps football honors: junior left tackle Derwin Gray and junior running back Ty Johnson, both earning all Big Ten honorable mention. Well, one Baltimore Raven picked up a weekly honor today. Punter Sam Cook was named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. The big play for the special teamer, a successful fake punt during the first half of the Ravens' Monday night game against Houston. Cook now 4 of 4 for 48 yards in his career. Forget the question, is Joe Flacco elite? We need to start talking about whether Sam Cook is elite. Now let's close things out with today's quickies. NFL players supporting good causes with their feet. It's being dubbed My Cause, My Cleats by the NFL. Throughout the league, players will wear cleats with charities on them. Maryland alum and current Philadelphia Eagle Torrey Smith will be supporting Show Your Soft Side, an anti-animal cruelty charity based in Baltimore. Always great to see so many athletes making a difference off the field. On to the next one. Congrats to Nats pitcher Max Scherzer and his family. This afternoon, the Nats ace announced the birth of Brooklyn Scherzer, tweeting, "Brooklyn is here, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Everybody is healthy and happy." Maybe Mad Max will set up a playdate for Brooklyn with Kirk Cousins' newborn son, Cooper Cousins. And before we're done, let's get some soccer into the Sportscast. MLS planning to add 2 expansion teams next month. 4 cities announced as finalists: Cincinnati, Detroit, Nashville, and Sacramento. It'll be interesting to see who will join DC United and the rest of the league. But guys, I still haven't gotten over the fact that the U.S. won't be in the World Cup next year.
It is pretty disappointing, but there's always 2022. Thanks so much for the update, Alex. Coming up, can you take back high school diplomas? You might wonder after hearing what's up next.
And one local high school is taking a stand against the Washington football team, but not because of their losing record. Stay with us. How much is your high school diploma really worth? The majority of last year's Ballou High School graduates have a diploma that they didn't earn, causing the DC mayor to order a major policy review. Over 60% of the high school's 2017 class didn't meet graduation requirements, yet all of them graduated. Some of the graduates didn't even know how to read or write, while 20% of the students missed more than half of the school year.
And speaking of school, one local middle school has added a new rule to its dress code policy, banning students from wearing Washington football apparel on campus. CNS-TV's Stephen Dilsizian visited the school to hear more about it.
At the Green Acres School, Washington NFL apparel is not welcome. In fact, it's now banned.
Because I never used the word ban, but I know it's been used a lot in the news, but effectively that's what I did.
Dean Neil Brown made the decision after the community started raising questions.
A family come to me, they're Native American. They felt that they couldn't understand why we were allowing people to come to campus wearing something that was essentially a racial slur.
It also conflicts with the school's mission and some of the curriculum.
The third graders study Native Americans. So the third graders were having conversations about this.
Green Acres was the first racially integrated school in Montgomery County. They celebrate culture, diversity, and understanding of different backgrounds. They hail to the school mission statement, not the Redskins. Outside of the school community, many adamantly disagree with this decision.
Banning kids from wearing the apparel in school is just going to make the problem worse and honestly distract the students more.
We were just trying to do what we thought was right for us.
Brown says looking back, he wishes he did things a little differently.
In retrospect, I sort of wish maybe we'd done it sooner.
In North Bethesda, Stephen Dilsizian, CNS-TV.
Well, that's Maryland Newsline for tonight. You can find out more about the stories presented here by going to our website, cnsmaryland.org. I'm Laura Perrott. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Natalie Grim. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at CNSMD and at Maryland Capital News Service on Facebook. You can find all of our shows and stories on our Capital News Service YouTube channel. Have a good night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.